Nobody noticed the man pushing the cleaning cart. That was the whole point. Station Divide was the kind of place where everyone had somewhere important to be. Traders rushed to make deals. Soldiers looked for work. Pilots bragged about their ships. And through it all, a human in a faded blue jumpsuit pushed his cart from table to table, emptying trash and wiping spills. His name was Denny Kowalski. He was maybe 50 years old, with gray hair at his temples and rough hands that had seen decades of work. He walked with a slight limp. His face was the kind that you forgot the moment you looked away. He was invisible, and he liked it that way. The gravity well was the biggest cantina on the station. It served drinks to 100 different species. Tonight it was packed. The air smelled of strange liquors and alien sweat. Conversations in a dozen languages mixed into white noise. Denny worked his way through the crowd, mop in one hand, rag in the other, eyes down, mind quiet. Then the door slammed open. A Draxian warrior walked in and the noise dropped by half. Draxians were built for war, 7 feet tall, 4 arms ending in clawed hands, scales that could stop a knife. This one was big even for his species, with scars running across his face like a road map of violence. His name was Gervith, and he wanted everyone to know he had arrived. He pushed through the crowd without caring who he shoved. He grabbed a table by lifting the previous occupants out of their seats and dropping them aside. Then he slammed his fist down and roared for drinks. The bartender, an old Krellian with too many eyes and not enough patience, sent a server running with bottles. Nobody wanted trouble with a Draxian. Denny kept mopping. He had seen warriors before. They came and went. The messes they left behind were always the same. After his third drink, Gervith started talking. His voice was loud enough to fill the room. "You know how many I have killed?" he asked no one in particular. 200 personal combat, face to face, claw to throat. Some younger mercenaries gathered around him. They were impressed. 200 kills was a number that meant something. Gervith showed them his scars. This one was from a Fenari blade. That one was from a Crossian rifle that almost took his arm. Each mark had a story. Each story ended with someone dead. "The Fenari thought they were warriors," Gervith laughed. "I killed 6 of them in one battle. They died screaming." The mercenaries nodded and raised their glasses. This was the kind of story they wanted to hear. Denny moved closer, cleaning the tables nearby. He did not look up, he did not react, he just worked. Gervith noticed him anyway. "What are you looking at, human?" Denny did not answer. He kept wiping the table in front of him. "I asked you a question." Gervith's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Are you deaf or just stupid?" "Neither," Denny said quietly, "just working." The Draxian laughed. It was not a friendly sound. "Humans," he said to the crowd. "The galaxy's janitors, good for cleaning up messes, good for nothing else." He leaned forward in his seat. "Tell me, cleaner, how many have you killed? 0, maybe you stepped on a bug once." The mercenaries laughed. A few other patrons joined in. Denny was nobody, an easy target. Denny said nothing. He finished wiping the table and moved to the next one. "That is what I thought," Gervith said. "Humans are soft, weak. You hide behind your machines and your tricks, put a human in front of a real warrior, and they run." He drained his drink and slammed the glass down. "I have killed 200. What has any human ever done?" The cantina was quiet now. People were watching. Some were uncomfortable. Others were curious. A few were recording on their devices. Denny's mop stopped moving. It was only for a second, just a small pause. Then he continued working as if nothing had happened. But the old Krellian bartender saw it. He had worked this station for 40 years. He had seen soldiers and killers and monsters of every species. He knew what danger looked like. And something about the way that human paused made his blood run cold. The bartender looked at Denny more carefully, at the way he stood, at the way his hands held the mop, at the way his eyes moved without his head turning. Those were not the habits of a janitor. Those were the habits of something else. The bartender leaned over to his server. a young Peloran barely old enough to work. "Go find station security," he whispered. "Tell them to come to the gravity well, tell them to come quickly." "Why?" the Peloran asked. "The Draxian is just talking." "It is not the Draxian I am worried about." The Peloran looked confused but hurried away. Across the room, Gervith was still boasting, still listing his kills, still showing his scars. Denny kept cleaning. His face showed nothing. His body was relaxed. He was just a janitor. But the bartender could not shake the feeling that something very bad was about to happen. And for the first time in 40 years, he was not sure who he should be afraid of. Gervith was on his 5th drink when he grabbed the boy. The young Peloran was just passing by. He was a trader's assistant, barely an adult by his species standards. His arms were full of data pads. He was not watching where he was going. His elbow caught Gervith's table. A drink spilled. The Draxian moved faster than something his size should move. One of his 4 hands shot out and wrapped around the Peloran's thin throat. He lifted the boy off the ground like he weighed nothing. "You dare," Gervith snarled. "You spill my drink and think you can walk away." The Peloran made choking sounds. His data pads clattered to the floor. His small hands tried to pull at the Draxian's grip, but he might as well have been trying to move stone. The cantina went silent. People looked away. Nobody wanted to get involved with a Draxian warrior. The Peloran's face was turning blue. "I should snap your neck," Gervith said. "Add you to my count. What is one more dead weakling?" That was when Denny set down his mop. He walked over without hurrying. His limp was more visible now. His footsteps were quiet against the metal floor. He stopped a few feet from the Draxian. "Let him go," Denny said. His voice was calm, not loud, not angry, just a simple statement. Gervith turned his head slowly. All 4 of his arms tensed. The Peloran was still dangling from one hand, still choking. "What did you say to me?" "The boy made a mistake. He did not mean to spill your drink. Let him go and I will clean it up." The cantina was frozen. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Gervith stared at the human. This small, gray-haired, limping janitor had just given him an order. The insult was almost too big to process. "Do you know who I am?" the Draxian asked. "A customer who spilled his drink," Denny said. "I have seen many." Something dangerous flickered in Gervith's eyes. He dropped the Peloran, who fell to the ground, gasping and crawling away. But the Draxian did not look at the boy. His full attention was on Denny now. He rose from his seat, all 7 feet of him, all 4 arms spread wide. His scales seemed to darken, a sign of aggression in his species. "You think you can talk to me like that?" Gervith took a step forward. "You think a human janitor can give me orders?" Denny did not step back. He did not change expression. "I think you were hurting a child over spilled drink. I think that is not what a warrior does." The word landed like a slap. Gervith's face twisted. "Not a warrior. I have killed 200. "You said that already." The Draxian's claws extended. Each one was as long as a knife and twice as sharp. He leaned down until his face was close to Denny's. "How many have you killed, human? Tell me your number. Let me hear it." Denny was quiet for a moment. His eyes met the Draxian's without flinching. There was something in those eyes that did not match the rest of him, something old and cold and patient. "I do not count anymore," Denny said. "It stopped meaning anything a long time ago." The words hung in the air. Gervith's confidence flickered, just for a second, just enough to notice. This was not how prey talked. This was not how victims responded. Humans were supposed to beg or run or cry. This one just stood there like he was waiting for something. At the bar, the old Krellian bartender gripped the counter so hard his knuckles went pale. He had seen it now. He knew where he had seen that look before. 20 years ago, during the war. "Ancestors protect us," he whispered. A young Draxian mercenary at a nearby table leaned over to his friend. "What is the old man so scared about? It is just a janitor." His friend, older and more traveled, was staring at Denny with growing unease. "I do not know, but look at the human's feet." The younger one looked. Denny's feet were positioned perfectly, weight balanced, ready to move in any direction. It was subtle, it was professional. It was not how a janitor stood. Gervith saw it too. Some warrior instinct buried under arrogance and alcohol was trying to warn him. The human was not afraid. The human should be afraid. Every species in the galaxy was afraid of Draxians. "Who are you?" Gervith demanded. Denny picked up his mop. "I am the man who cleans up messes," he said. "And right now you are making one. So either sit down and let me do my job, or we can find out if 200 was enough practice." The cantina held its breath. The old Krellian bartender reached under the counter. Not for a weapon, for a communication device. Security was taking too long. Someone needed to know what was happening here. Because the bartender had finally remembered where he had seen eyes like that before. On a human soldier during the Compact War. The soldier had walked into an enemy camp alone and walked out carrying the head of a general. They had called those soldiers ghost walkers. And if this janitor was one of them, then Gervith's 200 kills meant nothing at all. The old Krellian bartender had lived through 3 wars. He had served drinks to soldiers, criminals, and kings. He had learned long ago that the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy were not always the biggest. Now he stepped out from behind his bar. "Everyone needs to calm down," he said. His voice carried the weight of someone who had broken up 1,000 fights. "There is no need for violence here." Gervith did not take his eyes off Denny. "Stay out of this, bartender. This is between me and the cleaner." "No," the bartender said, "it is not." Something in his tone made people listen. Even the Draxian turned slightly to look at him. 20 years ago," the bartender continued, "there was a war. Some of you are too young to remember. Some of you were not even born." He looked around the cantina. "But I remember. I was on Krell Prime when the broadcasts came." The cantina was silent now. Even the background music seemed quieter. 7 species formed an alliance, the bartender said. They called it the Compact. Their goal was simple. They wanted to destroy humanity before the humans spread too far across the galaxy. Gervith snorted. "I know this story. The humans got lucky." "Lucky?" the bartender almost laughed. "The Compact outnumbered humans 50 to 1. They had better ships, better weapons, more soldiers. The war was supposed to last 3 months. He paused. It lasted 6 years. A murmur went through the crowd. The younger ones had heard stories, but the details had faded over time. The older ones remembered too well. "The humans did not fight like other species," the bartender said. "They did not meet their enemies in open battle. They could not. They would have been destroyed in weeks." He looked at Denny, who was still standing motionless with his mop in hand. "Instead, they turned every world into a trap, every city into a maze, every victory into a cost so high that the winners felt like losers." "Guerrilla warfare," someone in the crowd said. "Humans invented it." "Not invented," the bartender corrected. "Perfected. They had been doing it to each other for thousands of years. When the Compact came, humans just used those skills on a bigger scale." Gervith shifted his weight. His claws were still out, but he had not moved closer to Denny. "So they were clever," the Draxian said. "Clever is not strong." "No," the bartender agreed. "But there was something else, something the Compact did not expect." He took a breath. "Special units, humans who volunteered for missions with no return. They called them ghost walkers." The name moved through the crowd like a cold wind. Some of the older patrons paled. A Fenari merchant at a corner table quietly gathered his things and headed for the door. "What did they do?" a young mercenary asked. The bartender looked at him with old, tired eyes. "Everything. They went behind enemy lines. They destroyed supply depots. They killed generals in their sleep. They sabotaged ships so they would explode during jump. They started riots, spread disease, poisoned water supplies." He shook his head. "They did things that made the Compact afraid to close their eyes." Denny had not moved. His face showed nothing. He might have been listening to a story about someone else. The ghost walkers were not soldiers, the bartender continued. They were weapons. The humans took their angriest, their most broken, their most desperate young people and turned them into something new, something terrible. How many were there? Someone asked. Thousands at the start. Maybe 100 survived the war. The silence was heavy now. People were looking at Denny differently, at his gray hair, his lined face, his quiet eyes. Most of the survivors could not return to normal life, the bartender said. The war had changed them too much. Some became mercenaries, some disappeared into the outer systems, some, he gestured vaguely at Denny, some found other ways to live. Gervith's scales had lightened slightly. In Draxians, that was a sign of uncertainty. He looked at the human janitor with new eyes. You were one of them, he said. It was not a question. Denny finally moved. He leaned his mop against a table and rolled up one sleeve of his jumpsuit. His forearm was covered in scars, but among the scars was something else. A tattoo, old and faded but still visible. A skull with wings, the symbol of the ghost walkers. I was 19 when the war started, Denny said. His voice was quiet. I was 25 when it ended. Those 6 years are the only ones that ever felt real. Gervith stared at the tattoo. He had heard stories about the ghost walkers. Every soldier in the galaxy had heard stories. They were legends, monsters. And one of them had been cleaning tables 3 feet away from him this whole time. How many? The Draxian asked. His voice was different now, less aggressive, almost careful. Denny rolled his sleeve back down. I told you I stopped counting. That is not an answer. Denny looked at him with those cold, patient eyes. No, it is not. The bartender stepped back behind his bar. He had done what he could. The rest was up to fate. And somewhere in the station, security officers were running toward the gravity well. But deep down, the bartender knew they would probably be too late to help. He just was not sure who would need the helping. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The revelation hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. A ghost walker, here, in a station cantina, pushing a cleaning cart. Gervith was the first to break the silence. If you are what they say, then prove it. His voice was challenging, but there was something underneath it now. Doubt, maybe fear. Tell me what you did, tell me your war. Denny looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly he began to speak. I grew up on a colony world called New Galveston, farming planet. My family raised cattle, modified ones that could survive the local bacteria. His voice was flat, like he was reading from a report. When the compact came, they hit New Galveston first, test run for their invasion fleet. The cantina was completely still. Even the serving drones had stopped moving. I was in the fields when the ships came. I saw the first bombs fall on the main settlement, saw the flash from 20 miles away. My parents were in that settlement, my sister, my younger brother. He paused. There was nothing left to bury. Gervith said nothing. His claws had slowly retracted. The military picked up the survivors. We were angry, we were broken, we were perfect. Denny's eyes were distant now, seeing something that was not there. They took us to a training facility that officially did not exist. For 8 months, they taught us how to kill, not soldier killing, something else, something quieter. Ghost walkers, the bartender said softly. Denny nodded. They dropped us behind enemy lines with nothing but what we could carry. No extraction plans, no backup, no rules. He looked at Gervith. You want numbers? Fine. First mission, I destroyed a supply depot that was feeding 3 divisions. The resulting starvation killed 8,000 soldiers over the next month. The Draxian scales went pale. Second mission, I spent 3 weeks in a city held by Fenari forces. I contaminated their water supply, not with poison, with bacteria that causes fever and weakness. 30,000 soldiers got sick. 2,000 died. The rest were too weak to fight when our forces arrived. A Fenari at a corner table got up and left. His hands were shaking. Third mission, Denny's voice was still flat. A Krellian general was coordinating the Eastern Front, very smart, very dangerous. I got into his compound by hiding in a supply crate, spent 4 days living in the walls, learning his schedule. On the 5th day, I cut his throat while he was eating dinner. His whole staff was there. They never saw me enter, never saw me leave. The old bartender closed his eyes. He had heard about that mission. Every Krellian had. "You want more?" Denny asked. "I can keep going 6 years of missions. I stopped counting kills after the first year. It was not about numbers anymore. It was about what would make them afraid, what would make them want to stop fighting." Gervith swallowed hard. His earlier arrogance was completely gone. "Why are you here?" he asked. "Why are you cleaning floors?" Denny looked at his hands, rough, weathered, the hands of a working man. "Because killing was easy, living was hard." He picked up his mop. "When the war ended, I did not know what to do. I had spent 6 years doing terrible things for good reasons. I could not go back to farming, could not sleep without nightmares, could not be around people without looking for exits and weapons." The cantina listened in silence. "I tried being a mercenary, made good money, made better enemies. Every kill felt empty." He shrugged. "Then one day I saw a janitor on a station like this one. He was cleaning up after a bar fight, mopping blood off the floor, making the mess disappear, and I thought, that is what I want, to clean things instead of destroy them, to make messes go away instead of creating them." He looked around the cantina, at the faces watching him. "I have been pushing this cart for 15 years. Every clean floor is a small victory. Every day that I do not hurt anyone is a win. It is not much, but it is mine." Gervith stared at him. The Draxian's earlier challenge seemed foolish now. He had bragged about 200 kills to a man who had caused the deaths of tens of thousands. "You could have killed me at any moment," Gervith said slowly. "Since the moment I walked in, you could have done it and I would not have even seen you move." Denny did not deny it. "Probably," he said, "but that is not who I am anymore. I chose to be something else, something better." He met the Draxian's eyes. "The question is, what do you want to be?" Gervith had no answer. The air in the cantina was heavy with something new. Not fear anymore, something else, something like respect. And in the doorway, 3 station security officers finally arrived. They took in the scene. The frozen crowd, the massive Draxian, the gray-haired janitor. They had no idea what they had walked into. The security officers froze in the doorway. Their hands went to their weapons, but they did not draw. The tension in the room was thick enough to taste. "What is happening here?" the lead officer asked. She was a tall Vorican with blue-gray skin and sharp eyes. Her badge said Captain Nera. Nobody answered at first. Then the old bartender spoke up. "Nothing, Captain, just a conversation." Captain Nera looked around the room, at the pale faces, at the massive Draxian standing completely still, at the gray-haired human janitor holding a mop like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Does not look like nothing," she said. Gervith finally moved. He straightened to his full height and looked down at Denny, his 4 hands clenched and unclenched. Warrior instincts fought against new understanding. "You expect me to believe all of that?" he asked. "You expect me to think a janitor was some legendary soldier? Where is your proof beyond that old tattoo?" Denny said nothing. "Maybe you were a ghost walker once, maybe not, but that was 20 years ago." Gervith's voice gained strength. "You are old now, slow. Whatever you were, you are just a cleaner now." An older Draxian at the bar shifted in his seat. His right arm was cybernetic, a replacement for something lost long ago. Scars covered half his face. He had been quiet until now. "Gervith," he said, his voice was rough. "Stop talking." The younger Draxian turned. "Who are you to give me orders?" "My name is Krath. I served in the Compact War, 7th Assault Division." He held up his metal arm. "This is what a human did to me. A small woman. She looked harmless. She killed 11 of my squad before I stopped her, and she was not even a ghost walker, just a regular soldier." The cantina listened. "The ghost walkers were different," Krath continued. "I never saw one. Nobody saw them and lived to talk about it. We would find entire outposts dead, generals killed in their beds, ships that exploded for no reason. He looked at Denny with something like grudging respect. If this man says he was one of them, I believe him, and if he wanted you dead, you would have been dead before you finished your first drink. Garvith's confidence faltered again. He looked at Denny, really looked, and finally saw what the bartender had seen. The stance, the balance, the eyes that tracked everything without seeming to move. "You are serious," Garvith said slowly. "You could really do it." Denny tilted his head slightly. "I could, but I will not unless you make me." The words were simple. No threat, no anger, just a statement of fact. Captain Nera stepped forward carefully. "Everyone needs to calm down. Whatever is happening here, it does not need to end in violence." "She is right," Denny said. He set down his mop. "I did not come here to fight. I came here to work. All I want is to finish my shift and go home." Garvith stared at him. The Draxian's claws were fully retracted now. His scales had returned to their normal color. The aggression had drained out of him. "Why?" he asked. "Why tell me all of this? Why not just let me keep talking?" Denny was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was different, softer, almost kind. "Because you were hurting that boy, and because you were hurting yourself." He looked at the young Peloran trader who was still pressed against a wall, watching with wide eyes. "A real warrior does not need to brag about his kills. A real warrior does not choke children over spilled drinks." The words hit Garvith like a blow. "You have killed 200, Denny continued. "That is a lot of weight to carry. I know because I carry more. The question is not how many you killed. The question is why you need everyone to know about it." Garvith opened his mouth, closed it. He had no answer. "War makes you good at killing," Denny said. "Living is harder. Anyone can count the dead. The real question is whether you can count the reasons you kept going." The cantina was completely silent. Captain Nera lowered her hand from her weapon. Whatever was happening here, it was not a fight anymore. It was something else. Denny picked up his mop again. He looked at Garvith one more time. "I am going to finish cleaning now. You can stay or leave. That is your choice. But if you touch that boy again or anyone else in this place, then we will have a different conversation, and you will not enjoy it." He turned away and started mopping the floor near the bar. Just a janitor doing his job. The tension slowly bled out of the room. People started breathing again. Someone ordered a drink. The music came back on. Garvith stood alone in the middle of the cantina. For the first time in years, he did not know what to say. The old veteran Krath watched him with knowing eyes. "Sit down, young one," he said. "I will buy you a drink, and maybe I will tell you about the war, the real war, not the stories they tell to make us feel like heroes." Garvith hesitated, then slowly he walked to the bar and sat down. Behind them, Denny kept mopping. His face showed nothing. But somewhere deep inside, in a place he rarely visited anymore, something like peace settled in. Just another night, just another mess. He had cleaned up worse. The rest of the night passed quietly. The cantina slowly returned to normal. Drinks were poured. Conversations picked up. The excitement faded into just another story people would tell tomorrow. Garvith sat at the bar with Krath. The older Draxian had ordered 2 strong drinks and pushed one toward the younger warrior. "You were lucky tonight," Krath said. Garvith did not argue. He stared at his drink without touching it. His mind was still processing everything that had happened. "How did you lose your arm?" he asked finally. Krath flexed his cybernetic fingers. A human woman with a plasma cutter and no fear. She was protecting a group of civilians. I was supposed to clear them out. She killed 11 of my squad before I got close enough to stop her." He paused. "Even then, she almost won. I only survived because she bled out before she could finish me." "Did you hate her?" "For years, then I realized she was just doing what I was doing, fighting for her people, protecting what she loved." Krath took a long drink. "The war taught me that courage looks the same in every species. So does grief, so does loss." Garvith finally picked up his glass. He drank slowly, thinking about the janitor, about the stories he had told. about the weight in those quiet eyes. 200 kills, he said softly. I thought that meant something. It does, just not what you thought it meant. Across the room, Denny finished his shift. He emptied the last trash bin and wiped down the last table. The young Peloran trader approached him nervously. I wanted to thank you, the boy said, for earlier you saved my life. Denny looked at him. The boy could not be more than 17 by human standards, too young to be so far from home, too young to have almost died over a spilled drink. Be more careful, Denny said. The galaxy is full of people who hurt others to feel strong. Do not give them a reason to notice you. The Peloran nodded quickly. I will not, I promise, he hesitated. Can I ask you something? Denny waited. How do you do it? How do you just clean floors after everything you did? It was a good question. Denny thought about it for a moment before answering. Because someone has to, because the mess does not clean itself, because every time I make something better, even something small, it balances out a little of what I broke, he shrugged. It is not much, but it is enough. The Peloran looked at him with something like wonder. Then he bowed in the manner of his people and hurried away. Denny pushed his cart toward the exit. He was tired. His limp was worse at the end of long shifts. His back ached. But it was a good ache, the ache of honest work. He was almost at the door when a voice stopped him. Human. He turned. Gervith had gotten up from the bar and was walking toward him. The Draxian's body language was different now. No aggression, no pride, just something that looked almost like respect. I wanted to, Gervith stopped. He did not seem to know how to finish the sentence. You wanted to apologize for the boy you almost killed, Denny said. The Draxian nodded. Then go apologize to him. He is the one you hurt. Gervith's scales shifted colors, showing embarrassment. I will, but I also wanted to ask you something. He paused. How do you live with it, the things you did? How do you wake up every day and not? He could not finish. Denny understood. It was the same question he had asked himself 1,000 times in the dark years after the war. I chose to build instead of destroy, he said. Every clean floor is a small victory. Every day I do not hurt anyone is a win. The galaxy remembers killers but needs healers. I chose to be what the galaxy needed, not what the war made me. Gervith was silent for a long moment. Then he made a gesture that Denny did not recognize. 4 arms crossed over his chest in a complex pattern. That is a Draxian sign of respect, Krath called from the bar. One warrior honoring another, it is not given lightly. Denny nodded at the young Draxian. Use your 200 wisely. Make them mean something beyond bragging rights. Or better yet, make the next 200 years about what you build instead of what you destroy. He pushed his cart through the door and into the corridor. The station was quiet at this hour. Other species passed him without a glance. He was just a janitor, invisible, unimportant, forgettable. He preferred it that way. Back in the cantina, stories were already spreading. Whispered conversations about the human janitor who stared down a Draxian warrior, about ghost walkers and the compact war, about a man who chose mops over weapons. Gervith returned to his seat. He looked at his reflection in his drink and did not like what he saw. The human was right, he said to Krath. I do not know why I need everyone to know about my kills. I think it is because I am afraid that without them I am nothing. Krath nodded slowly. That is the first wise thing you have said all night. In the corridor, Denny reached the maintenance bay and parked his cart. He signed out on the time sheet and grabbed his jacket. His shift was over. He walked through the station toward his small quarters. His limp was heavier now. His bones remembered every hard landing, every fight, every desperate mission. But his conscience was quiet. That was worth more than all the medals in the galaxy. The station hummed around him, thousands of lives going about their business, none of them knowing about the war he had fought, the things he had done, the price he had paid. And that was fine. The galaxy was vast and full of warriors who counted their victories in blood. But sometimes the most dangerous person in the room was the one who had stopped counting, the one who had chosen peace not because he was weak, but because he was strong enough to be something more. Denny Kowalski unlocked his door, stepped inside, and closed it behind him. Tomorrow there would be more messes to clean, and he would be ready.